Hello, America. This morning, I said on radio that I think Donald Trump is going to be known as the first digital president, the one who ushered in a completely different era. I said that probably at 7 o'clock a.m. In Central Time. By noon Eastern Time, Microsoft announced a new millions qubits, a new chip for millions of qubits in quantum computing. Everything changed. This might be a day, if they're accurate on that, this might be a day that is studied, the day where everything absolutely changed and most people don't know it. But you are feeling some of these changes. The last few weeks have been some of the most exciting times that I can remember in a very long time. We have an administration, actually, an all of government focus on finding the graft and the waste and cutting it. But that's all happening because of technology. There's now a line item in the U.S. debt clock that has gotten very complex. I don't even know how to read. I can't even tell you what these numbers are. Let's see, that's 1,000 million billion. So that's $113 billion. That's really nothing. We have to hit 2 trillion before it really starts. It's the real-time savings now of $113 billion and climbing every day. Now put that into context. If DOGE savings represented national GDP, $100 billion would rank as the 73rd largest economy in the world. That's waste. Once they hit $200 billion, and I think that'll just be for starters, it's the 57th largest economy. 500, we pass multiple countries in Europe, the Middle East, South America, and Asia. Some of these economies are significant, and DOGE will do it just in wasteful spending alone. But it has also been exciting to see the entire country do their own research, start to use technology in a positive way, poring over our government spending data like never before. The president and Elon Musk have asked people like you to get involved. They're going through data, finding absurd things that we're wasting money on and blasting it in social media. This is what we've been encouraging everyone to do for 2 decades. Does anybody remember when Twitter first started, the watchdogs that we started? Ever since we were back on Fox, I was talking about things like USAID, the National Endowment for Democracy, and all of the other shady acronyms. Our government has been funding the radical transformation of global society for a very long time, but the racket appears to be ending. Tonight, I'm going to show you the central nervous system that runs the uniparty and the deep state. It is a system that began under good intentions. I will give them the benefit of the doubt, and that was winning the Cold War. But when the Soviet Union crumbled, the system morphed into a giant progressive money laundering operation. Think about this for a second and put the debt clock back on the screen. Our national debt is over $36 trillion. We spend over $7 trillion a year. We're operating with an over $2 trillion deficit. And the interest we have to pay just on our debt alone is over $1 trillion. Think about that while inflation is driving your family completely underwater. Housing is unaffordable, cars, groceries, eggs. The American dream has turned into a nightmare where parents stay up long hours of the night wondering how they're going to make next month's mortgage payment. They'll eventually, inevitably, have to put those expenses on credit. Credit card debt is now over $1.3 trillion and climbing. Credit card debt per U.S. citizen is approaching the average savings per household. And that is nowhere near being sustainable. This is the depressing reality we now face. However, we have a chance. While the Trump administration is embarked on a massive spending audit, the left is now crying, and it should tell you everything you need to know. Democrats in Congress are trying to make it all stop. They're saying the American people didn't vote for this. Were they listening? Did they even listen once during the campaign?
I will create a government efficiency commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. We need to do it. Can't go on the way we are now. And Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force.
So, yeah, we did vote for this. Maybe you did hear them, but you just thought he was going to be like every other president and not follow through. We gave the president our mandate to do exactly what is happening. We're sick and tired of things like this. The Biden administration tasks an army of his society-altering NGOs to spread gender equality to the tune of $2.6 billion all over the world. You'll never pay taxes that will your whole life you'll work and you will pay taxes and it will never amount to a fraction of what we just wasted there. How many people in North Carolina could have used that money? USAID bankrolled a college tuition of an Al-Qaeda terrorist. Speaking of USAID and terrorists, USAID packages were found inside Hezbollah weapons cache. The Department of Government Efficiency recently posted an update that, amongst a ton of other items they canceled, was a $10 million program we fund for the country of Mozambique. Why? Apparently, we found it interesting, I guess, to give them a voluntary male circumcision program. How many years would you have to work to pay taxes that would amount to $10 million? How many families in Lahaina could have put that cash to better use? It's obscene. And if you're not grossed out by what people have been doing with hard-working people's money, you're practically not human. But if you've been listening to me over the past 10 or 15 years, a lot of this isn't new to you. You've known about the shady USAID programs, funding things like sterilization programs in South America. 30 women died in this program alone. I've showed you things like this in the past. It's horrific. It's appalling. It's every bad adjective in the dictionary. And it was all funded by you, in your name. This is why the world hates us. Did you know we were carrying out so many revolutions in your name? This is what the left is crying about. They want all of this stuff to continue. And when I say the left, I specifically mean the NGOs, the politicians, and the media. We need to think about this stuff as they try to shut it down. Every time an Obama-appointed judge starts slapping down injunctions, remember those late-night conversations you had with your spouse, moving money around, figuring out what gets paid, what doesn't. Remember the fentanyl deaths on major American streets? Remember the devastation from natural disasters and the government's insulting offer of a check for a few $100s? When you remember those, remember things like this as well. I don't think DOGE has caught this one yet. This is new. The U.S. State Department has allocated nearly $4 million to fund police in El Salvador with a sports league. Seriously? While Americans are suffering, we're giving millions of dollars to a South African country with cops so they can run around in short shorts and play soccer? How do you feel about the current state of American health care? How are you doing paying your bills? Sucks, right? Due to progressive interference, we have a hybrid system with both federal and private funding. And because of that, the United States spends the most on health care in the world at $4.3 trillion. No one even comes close. And the system sucks. Why? We'll find out with DOGE. Despite all that, we found USAID has been subsidizing the Kenyan medical system with over $500 million. We can't figure this healthcare stuff out ourselves. What kind of hubris does it take, knowing that we suck at this, to give $500 million taxpayer dollars to Kenya to fix their healthcare system. The post-World War II era is over. That will become clear to everyone on planet Earth soon. It's over. That whole system is outdated and over. We cannot continue to spend money like this. And the reckoning is not only coming, it has arrived. But exposing some of this funding is not enough. We have to expose the entire system. They will morph. If we don't identify the entire progressive laundromat, they'll continue operations once they get power back. Every single NGO that is part of this machine must be identified, called out, have their funding cut immediately, promptly audited, and if they've done anything illegal, in jail. Private technology is already being written and employed so that people like you and me can help get this thing started and continue. A woman who's actually created one of these systems is joining me later on the show. She can't hear and she can't speak, but we're doing an interview with her in just a few minutes, and it's one you don't want to miss. We're going to give you the progressive globalist agenda, exactly what they've been hoping for. We're going to give them a great reset, not the one they wanted, but the one we all deserve. We'll continue in a minute. I want to talk to you about Relief Factor. I want you to know I don't read commercials for anybody that I don't believe in. And I have never, in my career of 45 years, I have never endorsed a supplement or anything that you would ingest into your body other than like Coke or something like that. I mean, not Coke, you know what I mean. So for me to endorse Relief Factor is a big deal, and I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't seen the effects myself. Horrible pain in my hands, tried everything to get rid of it, went to the best doctors in the world. None of them could make it go away. My wife said, try Relief Factor. I said, that's never going to work. It worked. Now I endorse them. I want you to try this. It's drug-free, 100%. Try it. Relief Factor Quick Start Kit. It's $19.95, less than $1 a day, 800-4-RELIEF. 800, the number 4-RELIEF. Just try it. See if you can't get out of pain too. ReliefFactor.com. To track government and NGO funding, back in the old days, you would have to have hundreds of nerds on your team that were willing to read through their IRS 990 tax forms. I am proud to say I've worked with a lot of those nerds over the years, and that research helped us expose people like George Soros, an organization like the Tides Foundation. If you've been a fan on the show, you've seen this and all that I'm going to show you for 20 years, but there's new stuff because new technology is now helping expose the globalist uniparty like never before. Websites like DataRepublican.com utilize algorithms that track the flow of money. They show us where all of your tax dollars are going. At the end of the show, I'm going to talk to the person responsible for creating all of this. It's not only amazing, not only what it's able to do, but for how it will help all of us fix this problem in the future. But I want to start this part of the show with a disclaimer, because the way the government and organization like Tides and the mob has operated, they will use it to smear people that you've come to trust. And that is the point. Our tax dollars have been spewed out all over the globe in insane numbers. It's been channeled, it's been filtered, basically laundered through a dizzying list of government entities and NGOs. But I'm going to show you how to identify the real culprits and sift through the bullcrap. Let me give you a case in point. There's a chart from Data Republican that shows money flow that was recently used to smear Christopher Rufo and his organization, American Studio, seen at the far right of this chart. Now, I'm going to get into the organizations on the left side of these charts later on in the program, but the further left you go, the closer you get to direct government funding from organizations like USAID and the State Department. The boxes with red banners are directly pushing U.S. taxpayer dollars, and they're spewing them out all over the place. But the white boxes have zero connection to taxpayer funds. Rufo's organization, American Studio, is not receiving government funds. They got donations through Schwab, Fidelity, and a charitable giving fund. Their money came from private individuals. But the graph tracks every organization that might have touched the base in some way to government spending, like banks and investment firms, which take in money from all angles. So you can see how this information can be used to demonize innocent parties along with the bad actors. So be very careful. Get used to this, because we're not going to be seeing a lot of it. And I think it was done this way by design. It's a distraction. It's misdirection. And there's no way the deep state goes down without a fight on this one, a big one. Their goal now is to make you distrust what you once trusted, Elon Musk, to turn upside down what was right side up and have you completely confused on what's really going on. Before I get back to the data, here's an example of the confusion being inflicted on the American public over what the government is really funding. Elon Musk recently called out this contract between the Department of Defense and an entity of Reuters. Over $9 million was contracted for, quote, active social engineering defense and large-scale social deception. I'm sorry, what? Is this as bad as it sounds? The media, fact checkers, and the bureaucracy, the original three amigos, immediately leapt to defend this contract. They claimed this was to defend America from, quote, social engineering cyber attacks, which use social deception tactics to trick humans. The three amigos are trying to tell us everything is cool, man. It's for our defense, and out of context, it's for your safety. But I immediately remembered a show that we did, something I told you about exactly 12 months ago. Do you remember this from the former head of CISA, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, Jen Easterly?
The most important critical infrastructure there is our cognitive infrastructure. And so building that resilience is, part of the mission set, in my view.
Cognitive infrastructure, as in inculcating Americans on speech they deem dangerous, and then changing how people think. I'm sorry, but that sounds exactly like, how did they put it again? Active social engineering defense and large-scale social deception? This is a recent report from the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Government. They found that CISA has been targeting Americans, utilizing private partners to censor them and shut them up. All in all, Congress found that CISA, an arm of the federal government, quote, expanded its mission to surveil American speech on social media, colluded with big tech and government-funded third parties to censor by proxy, and tried to hide its plainly unconstitutional activities from the public, end quote. But hey, believe the three amigos, there's nothing to see here. Isn't this amazing that immediately after DOGE exposes some of this stuff, there's either a counter smear, like with Chris Rufo, or there's a deflection like this. It all appears that they were just waiting to deliver it. It's all by design. But we can see the tools now. Use these tools to fully unmask the deep state. I said to you a few minutes ago, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is going to be remembered. I mean, it's amazing. How old is he? 78 years old? And yet his grasp of what technology can do and will do, it will transform the globe. We are the last great hope, because this, as you will find out in the next couple of segments, is happening all over the Western world. All of these countries are in a. This is why the leader of the Berlin Security Conference wept when J.D. Vance just said some common sense stuff last week. He wept and said, I didn't realize that we just don't have anything in common with America anymore. What? Yes, because as you will see, this money is going all over the globe. And the same players keep showing up. I'll show that to you next. The news has been so moving so very fast. It's hard to keep up and easy to get distracted. Here's something you don't hear much about. It matters most than really almost anything at all. There are babies in the wombs of moms who need your help right now. Preborn is a network of clinics that are on the front lines nationwide. They stand by for women deciding between life of their babies and death. Preborn seeks out the women to help them choose life, not just for their babies, but for themselves as well. These are hurting women. And I was talking to one of their clinics, and I was amazed, horrified, and I guess in some ways happy to hear it doesn't take that much to change people's view and get people who are for abortion to change and not abort their child. One lady said she couldn't make the rent. What if we could make the rent? Sure, no abortion. Preborn.com/Glenn. Help them now. Somebody I really admire but maybe don't agree with on everything, Ann Applebaum, wrote an article in The Atlantic a few days ago. There's a term for what Trump and Musk are doing, how regime change happens in America. Now, I found it interesting because I agree with her that this is regime change, but I believe she's saying the quiet part out loud now. The deep state, the administrative state, whatever you want to call it, is the state to many people in this country. It is what we just discovered it. It's not the elected government by the people, it's the bureaucracy. That is who so many people in this country revere as the ultimate power brokers. It's why they're out on the streets protesting circumcision in millions of dollars for circumcision in places in Africa. What are we doing? Because it's much deeper than this. This is the same ideology that progressives have adhered to for over 100 years. Woodrow Wilson, FDR, they hated the fact that the Constitution stood in their way, so they grew and empowered the bureaucracy, the administrators, to go around it. This is how NGOs can take your money and operate with the same authority as the CIA, but not have to deal with these pesky little things like oversight. And it has gotten to a point to where the money that is being spread around is grotesque, and the things that they're spreading it around to do in your name is also grotesque. They can work with leftists like Soros in Macedonia to seek regime change. That happened. Then copy that again in Albania, again with Soros. That happened. Then turn around and fund sterilization projects in South America, circumcisions, like I said, in Africa. But how does this happen? Well, there is a new tool. In fact, several of them out. One that we're talking about now is Data Republican. They're giving us an inside look at some things that we've never had before, and concentrating on USAID is simply not enough. The deep state is much, much bigger and deeper than them. And the Uniparty has been building this system for a very long time. I want to refer to you back to a couple of articles you need to read. I highlighted these in a show last year after the Palestinian activists started tearing up college campuses all over the country. The entire operation looked just like the color revolutions that we know Soros was involved in and the deep state was involved in other countries. And I said at the time, I think we're funding our own revolution. Go back and watch that show. This Washington Post article talks about how organizations funded by our government, like the National Endowment for Democracy, were operating like quasi-CIA. Now, this is a story that we found written in the early 90s. The other is this article from The Guardian in the early 2000s after the Ukrainian Orange Revolution, found by one of our great researchers. Both articles, along with the funding information that we already knew, helped paint the picture of how the deep state runs a parallel foreign policy. We explained this in an earlier show. It's all done in our names through NGOs with our tax dollars. And I made a similar chalkboard last year trying to explain, but I was missing this piece. You can follow the money for a distance. You get Congress to allocate a whole bunch blindly, usually through these organizations, an insane allotment to government agencies. Let's just take two of them, the USAID and Department of State. Those are trusted government institutions, right? State Department, USAID. Most people have never heard of USAID unless you watch this program. Massive amounts of dollars every single year. Let me show you a graph, the USAID money that was doled out to foreign recipients in 2023 alone. $4.17 billion. Now, here's where the trail gets harder to follow, and I'm absolutely positive by design. The money is then moved from state and USAID to other trusted organizations like the National Endowment for Democracy. Now, one of these secondary agencies that are really you don't know, somehow or another, the money gets from here down to places like Soros, Open Society, any progressive street activists, media outlets, Hillary's Civil Society 2.0. We knew that dollars were coming in from the government, but we didn't know how. We also knew between these people, and these people, regime change, the Arab Spring or color revolutions were always the end of it. Well, now we know how your tax dollars spread a globalist progressive agenda regardless on who's president. But knowing just this isn't enough. We have to fill in this blank. So who do you audit? The CIA? The State Department? USAID? Well, yes. But if you stop there, the deep state lives on. We have to go deeper. So let's start with a smear against Christopher Rufo. This is extraordinarily important because some people are going to be smeared. His organization is very, very clear. He gets zero tax dollars, and the only reason why it pops up on charts on this software is due to the splatter of money that is shot out all over the place. The further to the left you go on the money trail, several organizations begin to stand out. So he's on this chart. American Studio is his, but he gets zero tax dollars. But he happens to get money from Fidelity and Schwab and Bessemer. Now, are they getting tax dollars? No, which means that maybe somebody at World Vision and Notre Dame has made a donation here, and it went here, but not tax dollars. Okay. The names that keep popping up, the Consortium for Elections and Political Process Strengthening, CEPS, where is that? Right here. Okay. They get $165 million of your tax money. Have you ever heard of them? How about East-West Management Institute? Because they're getting $25 million every year. The National Endowment for Democracy and their affiliates like NDI. Right here, 167, 362 million. Then you have Freedom House, which is right here, another $93 million. And oddly enough, we notice that the Tides Foundation, our old friends, show up on the chart, clearly showing the Tides Foundation is receiving U.S. tax dollars. Now, back in the old days at Fox, I showed you the entire purpose of Tides is to be a progressive left-wing dark money machine. It's money laundering, legal, but money laundering nonetheless. You cannot trace money. Once it goes in, it goes dark. You can see what's coming out, but you don't know who's giving it. Leftist billionaires, organizations, they all donate to Tide specifically so their money can go dark. So why is the Tides Foundation getting tax dollars? Well, maybe this is a one-off. Let's do a money trail search on Tides and see what pops up. Are they involved in anything else? The Tide Center. Oh, holy cow. Now, this is, again, we're going to find deeper levels here soon. But this is showing the entire money trail for Tides. On the chalkboard, again, I have a few notable ones. Oh, Freedom House, NED, CEPS, East-West, Intranews. Wow, they show up again. So they're spreading tax dollars to each other, and then they spit out to places like Soros. Now, let me go to something local, something here in the United States. A couple of weeks ago, I told you about one of the largest NGOs that is involved with migrants coming into our country. It's Global Refuge. It's a cute little NGO that received $221 million of your money. Let's look at their flow chart. Their budget included $221 million of your money. Take a guess who shows up on the chart. Oh my gosh. Internews, SEPS, East West, NED, Tides Foundation. SEPS labels themselves as an organization that supports electoral processes and civil society. What's happening here? This is about the border. Annually, they handle about $500 million of your tax money, and it mostly comes from USAID. The Internews Network helps USAID meddle with independent media and press all over the globe. If you ever wonder why media all over the Western world says exactly the same things, it's because it's government approved and paid for. According to USAID, quote, in 2023, the agency funded training and support for 6,200 journalists, assisted 707 non-state news outlets, and supported 279 media sector civil society organizations. Wow, that doesn't sound like it's in our best interest. What are they promoting? In Ukraine, USAID was the main funder for 9 out of 10 Ukrainian outlets that receive international funding. Wow. The circulatory system of the entire deep state is now materializing. Auditing USAID is not enough. We cannot stop here. We now have some other players. We have SEPS that we know is involved. We have East West that we know is the next layer. We have the Tides Foundation. That one just pisses me off beyond belief. We have NED, which is up there as well, NDI as well, and Freedom House. So we know that these guys get the money. Government agencies goes here, then it goes to this level. And I think we're going to find another level. This is money laundering. The reason why you have money pass through so many hands is to enrich and launder. That's it. When we come back, I have the person who created this new tool to track the entire money trail, and you can use it. I think Americans should be using this to find the money trail every single day. Imagine what 150 million of us doing a little bit of homework could change in America. We're going to go deeper with her next. Joining me now is a person known as Data Republican on X. She built a website, DataRepublican.com. This provides detailed searches of publicly available government data, enabling users to easily track federal spending. This I wish I had 20 years ago. Her site has gone viral, and Americans all across the country are finding wild amounts of wasteful spending. She is herself deaf and cannot speak. I thought it would be interesting to have her on. You're going to be amazed how rapidly it happens. She's going to use a translator, and also to protect her identity, she does not want to use her real name, so Data Republican is here. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much, Glenn. It's really nice to meet you and chat with you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. So 20 years ago, I was trying to track the Tides Foundation, and this was without any kind of software. And we found so much money going in and out, but you couldn't follow the money. And it was designed that way. It was almost money laundering. First of all, what caused you to want to build this this website, this tool?
Well, I mean, so I've made some political software before, and I've built election prediction software and maps before. And it actually became very popular in different elections. And then after the election was finished, I decided that I really wanted to research where the charities are going. Like, just to see if I could track the money. I wanted to build a graph for, to see how Unite Way, and then, I figured out exactly the same thing that you were just talking about, Glenn. I was looking for charities. I was trying to track charities. And then all of a sudden I found these NGOs, and I realized they're taking all of our tax money and spreading it out within themselves. I realized that this is a government power structure in itself.
Yeah, it is quite amazing. Do we have any idea on how much is being lost in this? How much? I mean, we know that, we're paying for circumcisions, et cetera, but do we know how much is being skimmed off the top? Is there any way to tell?
Well, yes, we can infer these numbers.
Right.
For example, the NGO that you discussed, the National Democratic, the NDI, and the International Republic, the IRI, they're both financed by the NED, and SEPs. And the CEPPS, and they're all of our congressmen. These are all of our congressmen that are sitting on these boards. And they pay huge sums on air travel and housing and budget as well. And it's a lot of money that seems a little excessive.
When you see there's protests all over America today against DOGE and this whole process, do you think that is the elites and the people involved in this freaking out and knowing that their time is coming short? Or do you think average people are really not interested in finding this money and corruption?
Well, so I've seen a lot of people using the same language in this regard, like the elite users, right? But it's not the same vocabulary you see at home. You know what I mean? Like, I see the elite using words that don't mean the same things to us. Every person I've researched so far, they're politicians, they're encouraging revolutions and all of this stuff. And almost all of them have connections to the NGOs. They sit on their boards or they have some sort of benefit or control.
Or do you think we can, this is so deep. We've been looking at it for so long, but we never had your software to be able to route it out like this, and we didn't have DOGE. Are we going to be able to stop this? Because I know there's more levels to it than what we're showing from your research now.
Well, I think it's very, very important to understand all the globalists, and I don't really like that term globalist, but anyway, well, it doesn't matter. But they think they all emphasize this censorship and this secrecy. And the reason why they're offended is because their power depends on people not knowing what they're doing with their money. And so that is truly censorship, because I think if actual Americans understood what they were doing with our money, and that they were actually setting up their own government and actually ignoring what real people wanted to do, oh, we would be so upset. Because the reality is that these people have a government unto themselves that they've created with these NGOs that they run separately from us. And the reason I'm doing this interview is because I want to promote the knowledge to the public that these people operate in different vocabulary with different rules, and they have made their own government inside ours with our money.
It's remarkable. And, as I said when I was introducing you, if half of America would take an hour and just start looking, you'd find those who are really good at looking, and what they could uncover, what the rest of us could now all uncover, would be remarkable. But you also have to be careful, like Christopher Rufo has been called out as getting money. He didn't take money from it. It's clear if you know what you're looking at, correct?
Yes, absolutely correct. It's awful because many good charities, right, have really been attacked and impacted by this. And I think that the goal is to find the bad charities, right, that are encouraging the bad movement of money. For example, like USAID money. So think about it this way. So on $100 bills, every single $100 bill has a little tiny bit of cocaine on it, right? Just like the charity situation, right? So if you have a $100 bill that has some cocaine on it, but that doesn't mean that you are a drug dealer.
Right.
You just have a $100 bill, right?
Right.
So, but if you actually have a lot of cocaine $100 bills, then maybe you are a drug dealer. Depends on how much cocaine is on your $100 bills. Let's put it that way.
That's such a great analogy. What is the one thing that you found that you don't think people understand yet? And you're like, how come they're not getting it, that you think is really, really big?
Yeah. So, it's like you said, we figured out through my research that there were 8 core NGOs, that were set up over many years to combat communism. And they had separated themselves within Republican and Democratic parts. So, because, the two parties, so that they could be involved in influencing politics around the world to stop the spread of communism. But they all financed the same thing. They were supposed to be working together to stay in power and to stop the spread of, our 1980s understanding of communism. But then when the communism that we were fighting didn't exactly take hold the way that we thought it would, and we defeated it, quote unquote, they continued to receive money, and they became a democracy within themselves instead.
What are your thoughts on the critics of J.D. Vance?
Oh, yeah. I thought that was kind of funny, because J.D. Vance, in his speech, I thought it was actually really clear, if you believe in democracy, that means what? That you don't believe in censorship, right? Everything should be laid out to bear. But suddenly people became offended. And so they're going to Twitter, and I went to Twitter and I started researching the people who were offended, like Anne Applebaum, like you mentioned earlier, for example. She wrote a big, angry article, and then she sits on the board of the NED herself. She sits on the NED herself. For example, former Swedish Prime Minister Carl Bildt. I'm sure you know
Yes.
him. Former Swedish Carl Bildt. He was really critical of J.D. Vance, but then I researched and I figured out that his NGO actually accepts NED money as well.
It's absolutely.
That was interesting.
Yeah.
And I feel like I researched all the people that were criticizing that speech, and I found that all of them have connections to some kind of NGO, are receiving some kind of money, sitting on some kind of board.
Yeah. I will tell you, when I was doing this in 2008 and we were just looking at the Tides Foundation, we found the same players over and over and over again. It's just the same group of names. At least back then it was, and it's beginning to look a lot like that now, too.
Yep. Oh, yeah, you are absolutely right. On my website, you can actually do a bulk name search on my website. You can research 100 names at a time if you wanted to, and you can figure out all the NGOs and where they're sitting and who has power in them. Like I said, this data is available, but keep in mind, everything on this website is a tool. It cannot be used as a verdict.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. There is, today, I walked off the radio show at 11 o'clock Central Time, and 2 minutes before, Microsoft announced that they were had invented a chip for a quantum computer that would have millions of qubits on one chip. Groundbreaking, game-changing on everything. And I had just been talking today that technology is going to change so rapidly that I believe the age of secrets and all of hiding things, it's over. Because while it's difficult for us to find, as AI becomes stronger and as we become more curious, there's just, encryption with quantum computing is over in, 5 or 6 years. There's not going to be any secrets. Do you believe that?
I think the reason why everyone is really concerned about AI safety and why everyone's really careful about it with their policies, and that's important. But honestly, I think they just want to control AI so they can continue to hide all of this information.
Yeah.
Because the numbers don't lie, and the algorithm will find what it's going to find, regardless of who wants it to be found.
Amen. It is an honor to talk to you. I can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing, and I hope someday I get an opportunity to shake your hand and say hello.
Oh, me too. Yes, same. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless. From Dallas, good night.